Hey guys, so today I want to talk about the importance of setting your default applications. Now, when you install a new Linux operating system, you're going to have a variety of defaults. And the reason I have some of these emails opened is because this is going to directly relate to this video. In fact, not too long ago, several months back, I ended up talking to those who are supporting this blog and telling them about some of the email lists that I was being subscribed to, which I was not at all subscribing myself to. Now, I also want to talk about how this could have been an attack in a more public forum today, and this is an example of what could have been an attack and what could be an attack on someone else. Basically, I got subscribed to email lists that I had no interest in whatsoever. I'm not trans in tech. I mean, obviously, I respect everyone's rights, and I think everyone should have, equal treatment, no matter how they identify. But I personally do not fit the description of transit tech, so it wasn't an email list I wanted to continue receiving email from. And apparently it's something sponsored by JP Morgan, according to what it says. But remember, anytime you get emails or email subscriptions, it doesn't mean it's the actual sender. It could be a spoofed email. It could be easily a spoofed email. And I also want to talk about how this could have been used as an attempt to de-anonymize me. So for example, especially in the case that I don't want to be subscribed to the autism and the trans in tech mailing list. That's just my personal, I have enough emails as it is, so I don't want extra mailing lists. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they were, trying to mess with me, or maybe they just didn't like my content, or maybe they just decided to play a prank on me and subscribe me to some mailing lists. Either way, if I were to click on this link here, my default browser is what would open it. So even if you have your Thunderbird settings done absolutely perfect, even if everything is going through Tor and Thunderbird, if your default browser is not set to Tor browser, you're going to end up making a direct connection and giving away your IP address. So this could have been an attack where maybe I was being subscribed to mailing lists they knew I didn't really want to stay subscribed to, and they could even forge the email to have the unsubscribe link be to a server that could either perform some kind of attack or some kind of attempted attack, some kind of malicious file download, or it could be just something as simple as making a direct connection to de-anonymize an I2P mail user. So that's always a possibility. You have to keep in mind in every situation, not everything is what it seems online, and many things could turn out to be a trick in order to get you to click on those links. So obviously, my instinct would be to unsubscribe. I would click on this, and that would connect me to the server that is linked right here using my default browser. If my browser was not Tor browser, that means it would open in Firefox or Chrome or whatever browser I may use with a direct connection, giving away my IP address and opening me up to further targeting. So, how do we solve this kind of problem? Well, we have to take a look at our default applications. And you should also consider, when we take a look at our default applications, in my case on this Debian-based distro, which is actually a kick-secure hardened Debian, we can take a look and find our default applications. And that would be under settings here. So you drop down menu, go to default applications. You open it up. I've already set mine to Tor browser. But by default, this particular operating system did not have Tor browser as the default. So by default, the Debian Kicksecure would have opened it in a direct connecting browser. Even though I have I2P mail set up perfectly in Thunderbird, it doesn't matter. The point is, your system is going to reference your default applications anytime you click on a link inside other applications or not. And each of these applications, when we choose applications, we can also change the fingerprint of our applications. By changing defaults to something, I recommend something that is used and widespread, because the more obscure an application handling your links, the more unique that application is going to behave, because it's seldom used. So it's always a good idea to set default applications to something that is set up to be a little more hardened, maybe sandbox setup, maybe implementing some other things, some proxying and no direct connecting. There's a lot of things you could do, but essentially what I have done here is I've gone to this here, and you can simply click on other, and that will allow you to specify the exact command. So in my case, how I did that was I right clicked on my shortcut. So let's go ahead and minimize this for a moment. So I right click on here, I go to the properties, and then I go to the launcher. And then you can just simply copy this command here in order to make it open the Tor browser as your custom web browser to handle links. And this is going to save you from a direct connection or some other form of attack. A Tor browser on the safer settings is always going to be safer than any other browser that you decide to open it in. And of course, you could set it up to open up something like in an I2P based browser as well, especially with the out proxies allowing private connections to the ClearNet. You could do that as well, but you'd have to have an I2P router running all the time in order to make it reliable to click on links and have it load in that I2P browser. So we set it to Tor browser because it makes the most sense. I generally always have both I2P and Tor running, but in the cases that I may not have the I2P router running on my desktop, I always have an I2P router on another machine, a server. So I could always set that up for remote usage if I wanted that as my default. I chose to go with Tor browser. It is also a widespread used browser, so it's also less unique in the behavior. And so just keep this in mind when you set your default applications here. It's going to open those links to those types of files or open those types of files in that. So you can set yourself up for success by hardening those applications first and then setting default applications to open your files and links in. So that's up to you how far you want to take this. But, it's not necessarily going to be that important to set, file opening. You can always open with whatever application you want to open it with. But if you are going to possibly just double click something and not think about it, it's always good to set those default applications, and that's why I'm talking about it today. I have Mozilla Thunderbird as my default mail reader, and it's set up on the I2P mail. I also have another Onion mail set up in another profile. But yeah, take a look also at my previous video, how to set up secure anonymous email in Thunderbird. So I have a lot of videos covering these topics and some with videos just specializing in hardening your Thunderbird settings. So make sure to take a look at that as well. But these default links and default applications handling, that is going to be important because somebody could easily perform an attack by forging an email saying you're subscribed to this, flood your inbox, make you think that you are getting all these emails from a mailing list, and it could be a server set up as a mailing list, in order to get you to click on the links that they forged inside that spoofed email. So keep this in mind whenever you're dealing with things and links. Several different types of links out there. There's links for XMPP chats. There's links for all mailing, of course. So many different types of links out there, and in order to change how those links are handled, go into your default applications. You can do the same thing on your Android phone, your Pine phone, your Librem 5, your Linux phone. Your Apple device should be able to do this. I've never owned an Apple device, but I assume they also allow you to change default applications. Just ensure you set it to Tor browser for your default web browser. That's going to save you a lot of heartache later if you run into one of these types of attacks where somebody has forged a false mailing list and wants you to click that unsubscribe button. So they may sign you up for a mailing list you have no interest in, something that seems to just fill your inbox with junk mail, which I've marked it as junk. But originally it didn't show up as junk. So keep this in mind. Anytime you are setting up a new operating system, ensure you have Tor browser set as your default browser. And this was an example of a possible attack that could have happened on me, and it could happen to you, could happen to someone you know. So even if you have your mail client, locked in, perfect settings, if you haven't taken a look at your default browser and set it to Tor browser, you could be taking an extra risk, and those links may not be doing what they tell you they're doing. That's what I have today, guys. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will be back later with more on how to protect your security and privacy.